There's a business that's quietly running inside the American economy for decades, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how it works and exactly what the first steps would look like if you wanted to actually get into it. It's called equipment finance brokering. I've spent the last 10 years inside the industry on the lender side, reviewing the actual deals that come across a bank's desk. I've personally financed over $300 million in equipment across construction, medical, transportation, manufacturing, aviation, you name it. So what I'm about to walk you through isn't theory. It's how the actual deals work from someone who's approved or declined thousands of them. Here's the problem this industry exists to solve. Every business that uses equipment to operate eventually needs to buy the equipment, and that's pretty expensive. A construction company needs an excavator, $300,000. Trucking company, $150,000 for a truck. The medical practices, they need their imaging, they need their laser equipment, and none of them are paying cash. They go looking for financing. Most of their banks first, most of them get declined. Not because the business was bad. Banks just conservative by design. A business under 2 years, a slightly higher debt load, an industry the bank doesn't favor. Any of these can mean an automatic no, even for a healthy growing company. That's where the broker comes in. And that's an entire layer of alternative lenders who specialize in exactly the deals banks turn away. The broker's job is to connect the business to the right one of those lenders and get paid a commission when the deal funds, typically 5% of the deal value. On a $150,000 deal, $7,500 right there. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing about this and you're actually curious what getting started would look like, here's the real 3 steps. Not a vague version, the actual ones. And I want to go deep on each one of these steps because this is the part most people are teaching in this industry skip entirely. Step 1 is learning how lenders think before you do anything else. Here's what it actually means in practice. Every lender has what's called a credit box. That's going to be a specific range of deals that they're going to be comfortable funding. Certain equipment types, certain industries, certain deal sizes, certain credit profiles. This isn't vague concept. It's incredibly specific. One lender might love financing construction equipment for businesses that have been operating for 3 or maybe 4 years plus, but pass entirely on anything in the trucking space. Another lender might specialize exclusively in transportation, comfortable with newer businesses, but cap out at $300,000 deals and won't go higher no matter how strong that file looks. Let me give you a real example of what happens when this goes wrong, because I've seen the exact scenario play out most times than I can count. A broker gets a genuinely good deal, and the construction company, 3 years in business, solid revenue, looking to finance $400,000 piece of equipment. The broker submits it to a lender they've worked with before, a lender who happens to specialize in smaller transportation deals. That lender isn't going to touch it, not because the deal is bad, but because it simply doesn't fit what they fund. The submission sits for 2 weeks, gets a vague decline, and the broker has no idea why. Because nobody else has ever explained that the issue was never the deal. It was who he sent it to. And this is why understanding lenders has to come before everything else. If you don't know the landscape, you're eventually going to get your deal to the wrong lender. And guessing means wasting time, frustrated clients, and the deal that should have funded easily is dying for no reason. I've spent real time here before doing anything else, learning which lenders favor which industries, which ones are aggressive with new businesses, and which ones specialize in larger transactions. This single piece of knowledge is what separates brokers who fund consistently from brokers who spend months wondering why nothing is going to work. So here's the actual action this week. Pick 3 lenders. Doesn't matter which ones you want. Just look up what equipment types and industries they publicly list on their website. You're not trying to master the whole lending landscape in a week. You're just training yourself to ask, who is this lender built for, before you even submit the deal. And then step 2, you're going to be identifying which 2 industries to focus on early, rather than trying to cover everything at once. And this matters more than people realize. When you're new, try to understand the equipment needs, financing patterns, and lender preferences across construction, medical, transportation, manufacturing, aviation, all at once is genuinely going to be overwhelming. And it slows you down. Picking a lane lets you actually become sharp at something instead of mediocre at everything. Construction and transportation, they tend to be the easiest entry points. And there's a specific reason why. The equipment needs in this industry are consistent. construction company isn't financing one piece of equipment and then just disappearing. They're cycling through equipment regularly as projects come and go, as machine wears down, as they take on bigger contracts that require more capacity. And it's the same with trucking. Fleet ages, routes expand, equipment gets replaced on a cycle. The constant need means there's always a fresh deal somewhere in the industry, which means more opportunity for you as you're learning. The deal size in these two industries also tend to be large enough that each transaction is genuinely meaningful. Spending the same amount of effort on a $20,000 deal and a $200,000 deal is what happens. It takes the same amount of time. So industries with naturally larger transaction sizes make you more efficient while you're building the skill. And if you've already have some familiarity with an industry, even loosely, that's worth factoring into. If people in construction, if you've worked adjacent to trucking, if you understand the rhythm of how those businesses operate, every conversation you have is going to be easier because you're not starting from zero on two fronts at once, the industry and the financing. So here's how to actually pick. Write down every industry you have ever loosely worked with. People you know, places you've worked, things you understand the rhythm of. Cross off anything where there's zero existing connection. Whatever is left, your short list. Pick one with the biggest, most consistent equipment need, and that's your lane for now. Step 3 is going to be finding your first relationship. And this is the part most people get completely wrong. Most people assume that getting into the business means cold calling random businesses and pitching financing to strangers. That is genuinely the hardest, slowest, and least reliable way to build this. Here's what actually works instead. Equipment vendors, dealers, and sellers already have a constant stream of buyers who need financing. Think about it from their side of the coin. A construction equipment dealer sells excavators every week. Most of the businesses buying from them need financing to make the purchase happen. Right now, that dealer is either sending those buyers to whatever financing manufacturers offer. And some of them are mediocre, or the buyer is going off and trying to figure the financing entirely on his own, which slows down the sale for the dealer. If you can become the person that dealer trusts to send their financing needs to, you've just tapped into a consistent stream of deal flow without ever making a single cold call. The dealer benefits because their sale closes faster and smoother. The buyer benefits because they get financing handled by someone who actually understands it. And obviously you benefit because deals start coming to you instead of closing them one at a time and chasing them yourself. Building this relationship isn't complicated, but it does take a real conversation, not a cold pitch. It looks like reaching out to be one or two vendors in whatever industry you picked in step 2 is the best way to handle this. Explaining clearly what you do, being upfront, that you're early, but generally want to make buyers financing smoother. The vendors who are easiest to start with are usually smaller, independent dealers rather than a massive chain, because decisions happen faster and relationships matter more at that level. Once you have even one or two of these relationships, the dynamic of the entire business changes. You stop being someone searching for deals and start being someone deals come to. So here's the actual move. Find 2 equipment dealers in the industry you picked. Doesn't have to be complicated. A quick search from dealers or sellers that in the space works fine. Reach out, tell them plainly that you're getting into equipment financing. You'd like to understand how their buyers currently handle it. That's it. That's one conversation, and it's the first step in this entire business. That's genuinely the realistic starting sequence. Learn how lenders evaluate deals so you stop guessing. Pick a lane so you can actually get sharp instead of spread thin. Build a small number of right relationships so deal flow starts coming in. I had a student 2 weeks in doing exactly this who ended up with a $1.5 million deal in the process. Not because he got lucky, but because he'd taken his time to understand the lender side well enough to recognize exactly what was looking in front of him, which was the opportunity. This industry has been running for decades. The reason almost nobody talks about it is because people are doing it and they don't need an audience to make money on it. I'm one of the only people teaching this publicly, and I'm doing it from the lending side, which is why this channel exists. I'm going to keep going deeper on each one of these steps in the future videos, how to actually read a lender's credit box in detail, how to approach relationships the right way with the vendors, and what a real submission looks like. Subscribe if you want to learn how this business properly works, and I'll see you in the next video.